The world-famous Caesar's Palace at Las Vegas in the state of Nevada, scene of the last and crucial Grand Prix of 1981. Crucial because any one of 3 of the 24 men who are going to start in this 75-lap race around this tight and twisty 2.2-mile, 14-turn, brand-new circuit could end this afternoon as 1981's Formula One Grand Prix world champion. They are Carlos Reutemann, the Argentine driver, Nelson Piquet from Brazil, and Jacques Laffite, the Frenchman. And Reutemann is leading with 49 points, driving in his Williams car, and there he is in pole position on the grid. World Championship leader, last race of the year, 49 points, but alongside him is the reigning world champion, number 1, Alan Jones, who is to drive today in his last Grand Prix before he retires. Second in the World Championship is Nelson Piquet from Brazil in the Brabham, and in third position is Jacques Laffite, the Frenchman, in the Talbot Matra. But there, third fastest after practice, Gilles Villeneuve, the French-Canadian in his Ferrari, and Alain Prost, number 15, who's won 3 Grand Prix this year. So there's a lot of opposition for Carlos Reutemann as the contestants weave their way on the warm-up lap around this very abrasive surface. There has only been one race held so far since Las Vegas was built, the Caesar's Palace circuit, and that's yesterday's Can-Am race, but we are expecting speeds of the order of 105 miles an hour around this lap, and that means the whole lap, not the short parts of it. The fastest parts of the circuit are going to be at some 160 miles an hour. Well, now they've just cleared turn 6 in this 14-turn circuit. They're on their way to the left-hander at turn 7, weaving about to warm up their tyres. And just a quick prospect and look at the grid again. Reutemann fastest, Jones second fastest, and Reutemann's speed was 105 miles an hour. Villeneuve and Piquet fourth fastest in practice. Then Alain Prost on the third row as we look at Reutemann, the World Championship leader, almost coming to the end of the warm-up lap. John Watson in the British Marlborough car was 6th fastest. Patrick Tambay, the Frenchman, driving in his last race in the Talbot Matra, was 7th fastest, ahead of Bruno Giacomelli. And Jacques Laffite, the third man in contention for the World Championship, has been only 12th fastest in practice, and that puts him way down on row 6. Well, there are the first 2 rows, Reutemann and Jones in staggered formation, row 1. Villeneuve and Piquet, row 2. So in the first 2 rows, 2 of the World Championship contenders, and back in row 6, you can see the blue Matra in the background, right in the background, behind Tambay's car of Jacques Laffite. So now, around turn 14, to line up on the grid, to watch for the lights, which will change as ever about 7 seconds after the red goes on, the green, to start this 75-lap Caesar's Palace Grand Prix, the first ever here in sunny, warm, blue skies, Nevada. Watch for the red, Reutemann and Jones. Reutemann to the left, Jones to the right. And Villeneuve comes straight through from the second row, and Prost to the left, but into the first turn, up to turn 1, the left-hander, it's Jones leading Villeneuve with Reutemann and Prost right up there. So it's Jones, Villeneuve second. Reutemann is still alongside Prost, battling for third position, and the rest of them surging over the crest and towards us on the first lap. And look already at the lead that Alan Jones, the 1980 world champion who has only won 1 race this year, has pulled out over Gilles Villeneuve in the Turbo Ferrari, and it's Prost in third position. It's Bruno Giacomelli in 4th position in the Alfa Romeo. In 5th position, it's Carlos Reutemann. And that is Jean-Pierre Jérier's car. That's the Osella, and something must have happened on the start line to Jérier, because with the other runners on the first lap, he's not even sitting in the cockpit. I would suspect a broken half shaft, because that has happened before when you get the terrific loads put on the transmission when the driver lets in the clutch to start the race. So, with a retirement already, Jean-Pierre Jarier, Jones coming through to complete lap 1. Villeneuve is second, Prost is third, Giacomelli is fourth, Reutemann is fifth, Watson is in sixth position, and Nelson Piquet is not in a point-scoring position at the moment. This then is lap 2. Villeneuve. Jones way out ahead. Villeneuve second. There's Prost in the turbocharged Ferrari, the man who won the French Grand Prix and 2 other Grand Prix as well, in second position. Behind them it's Giacomelli, and he's doing well in the Alfa Romeo. Carlos Reutemann, John Watson, it's Laffite in 7th position, and Piquet is in 8th position, and the English driver Nigel Mansell is in 9th place, and Jones leads. Lap 2. Well, there's a surprise. Nelson Piquet and Jacques Laffite only in 7th and 8th positions on the second lap, as we look at Villeneuve in second position, Prost in third, Giacomelli is still fourth. And I can tell you now that Nelson Piquet started this race in real pain. This circuit runs anti-clockwise in comparison with the normal clockwise circuit, as a result of which all the drivers are being very badly affected by G-forces. Their heads are being thrown sideways, their neck muscles are not used to the strain, and Nelson Piquet went away to have his neck massaged, and it seems to have done more harm than good, because he's in real pain as he starts the early stages of the race, and of course it's going to get worse and worse. Jones leads then, no change, it's still Villeneuve second. Tucked up right behind him, it's Prost, who's trying to go through and take that place. Giacomelli holding a watching brief in 4th position, and behind the Italian, it's Carlos Reutemann, and right behind him in 6th position, John Watson, then Jacques Laffite, then Nelson Piquet. And Alan Jones is really determinedly showing the way. He last won a Grand Prix right at the beginning of the year in America, and there is Prost going through. Look across the wall, and Alain Prost is up into second place. So already the doughty Frenchman, Alain Prost, looked for his number 15, the winner in France and Holland and Italy, and who should have won, who could have won at least 3 other Grand Prix, is up into second place. And there is, just let me have a close look, it's Elio De Angelis' Lotus, the Italian, in 4 tyres. And I fear he may be the first of many, because as I was saying, this surface at Caesar's Palace Grand Prix is very, very abrasive. If you look to the left and right, as Villeneuve comes through with Giacomelli behind him, Villeneuve now in 3rd position, you will see a lot of sand to the left and right of the circuit on the runoff points, and that has been blowing across the circuit during practice, making the rough surface even more abrasive. So, De Angelis in for tyres, Jones leading, Prost up into second place, Villeneuve down to third, and that is, my goodness, that is Patrick Tambay, and I have never seen a crash like that. The whole of the front of the car ripped off, and Tambay has either hurt his ankle or his leg, as you can well see, hopping frantically to get out of the line of fire, as it were, because if he's gone off, other cars can go off, and that's a bad place to be sitting. Out of the car, let's hope he's all right. And the marshal's coming up. There's a fire marshal in the background, and they will now somehow have to remove the wreckage of that car, and it's a very, very badly broken motor car indeed. As Alan Jones approaches, well in the lead, he's building up. Already he's got a lead of about 6 seconds over Alain Prost, the Frenchman, and I wonder if Prost, now that he has fought his way through into second position, is going to be able to close the gap between himself and Alan Jones. He's certainly pulling away from Villeneuve. I can see it, you can't at the moment, but watch Alan Jones. And as a matter of interest, the broken little finger on his right hand, which has been bothering Alan Jones ever since the Italian Grand Prix and the Canadian Grand Prix, in both of which he drove with his little finger taped to his next finger, is now perfectly all right. And of course that caption was out of date because Prost is now up into second place. And there is Reutemann. And Carlos Reutemann is only in 7th position out of the points. But there is a man who's very much in the points. World champion. He can't be world champion this year, Alan Jones, but he means to go out with a real flourish. And just as a matter of interest, no world champion has ever won the last Grand Prix in which he competed. This is Alan Jones' last Grand Prix, he says, although I would never be surprised to learn that he had changed his mind. So is Alan going to break that record and be a world champion who is retiring, who also wins his last Grand Prix? Well, we don't have to bother about that at the moment because there is Nelson Piquet chasing Carlos Reutemann. Now these two are in 7th and 8th positions. Reutemann leads the World Championship, number 2. Piquet is second in the World Championship, number 5. Behind them is Mario Andretti. Reutemann is 7th, Piquet is 8th, Andretti is 9th. And here comes the battle for 3rd. Villeneuve, Giacomelli, Laffite, Watson in 6th position, 7th place man Reutemann. And it is significant, I say again, that both Reutemann and Piquet, totally unexpectedly, are out of the World Championship points at the moment. Are they going to be able to get up through the field? Now there is Jacques Laffite. He is 3rd in the championship and he's ahead in the race of both Piquet and Reutemann, respectively in 8th and 7th places. And Jacques Laffite is starting to close up. I can see this from my box on Bruno Giacomelli, who is in 4th position. There is Giacomelli coming up alongside Villeneuve in 3rd position, behind Prost and Watson and Jones. There's Giacomelli. Now behind him is Jacques Laffite. So the race is really hotting up. Villeneuve, Giacomelli, Laffite, 3rd, 4th, 5th. And behind them, John Watson. And John Watson's another man who's in trouble because just as Nelson Piquet is suffering from that aching neck, that's the situation after 11 laps, John Watson has been suffering from a stomach ailment and he's running a high temperature, and when he came up to the start he'd got fluid pouring out of virtually every pore in his body. He's in real trouble, but it's not stopping him from holding 6th position at the moment. That's the race leader, Alan Jones. There, 2 Italian cars, a French-Canadian in the first one, Gilles Villeneuve 3rd, an Italian in the second one, Bruno Giacomelli 4th. Chasing both of them hard, Jacques Laffite, the Frenchman, in the Talbot Matra. Now, Laffite could win the World Championship and be the first ever Frenchman to do so, but he has got to win, or at the very worst, finished in 2nd place. And in order to do that, he's got to get past Giacomelli, he's got to get past Villeneuve, he's got to get past Prost, he's got to get past Jones, and that is a very unlikely situation. But stranger things have happened in Grand Prix racing. As we watch Bruno battling Bruno Giacomelli, number 23, 29 years old, chasing number 27, the 29-year-old also, Gilles Villeneuve, and Alan Jones is fastest on the circuit, a whisker under 100 miles an hour at 1 minute 21.676 seconds. And I'm sure we're going to get a 100 mile an hour plus lap before very much longer, because the fuel loads are reducing, the cars are getting lighter, there is more rubber being put down on the track, it is therefore becoming less abrasive, although Alan Jones is very much commanding the race from the very front as this wonderful battle for 3rd place develops behind Alain Prost in 2nd place. And it's still Villeneuve 3rd in the Ferrari, Giacomelli challenging 4th in the Alfa, Jacques Laffite right behind him in 5th position in the blue Talbot Matra. And Giacomelli's going to challenge again. He's going to try and take Villeneuve. But Villeneuve uses all the turbo power of the Ferrari to keep his 3rd position ahead of Giacomelli. And John Watson is just behind. There's the blue Matra, and there is John Watson. So 4 cars, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, absolutely together. There is the 7th place, Reutemann. Right behind him in 8th position, Nelson Piquet. And for the record, in 9th and 10th places, it's Mario Andretti and René Arnoux that we haven't seen at all. He's dropping back in the turbocharged Renault. There's Reutemann, World Championship leader. He's got to do better than this, much better than this, if he is to stand a chance of winning the World Championship. But then so has Nelson Piquet. As long as Reutemann, who is currently 7th, can keep ahead of Piquet, irrespective of where they are. He's not going to. There's Piquet. He's right up alongside him. Piquet's right up alongside Reutemann. Is he going to get through? The answer is no. But now Piquet's got the feel of the circuit. He's got the feel of Carlos Reutemann. And I have to tell you that Reutemann has the reputation of being a man who will fight to keep you behind him, but will not fight to get past you if you succeed in getting past him. So Piquet will know this, and Piquet will be feeling, if only I can get ahead of Carlos Reutemann, I've got it made for the World Championship, provided I can finish the race. But there's a long way to go. Alan Jones on the right, leading the race, catching Mark Surer, the Swiss driver, in the Theodore and going past him as though he was standing still. That's the mark of a true champion, because Mark Surer is a very, very good driver too. There is a record crowd for a Nevada sporting event of over 38,000 people watching this Caesars Palace Grand Prix, and they are looking, as you are now, at Carlos, and look at his Villeneuve, 3rd, Giacomelli, Laffite, Watson, Reutemann, Piquet and Andretti absolutely together as Eddie Cheever walks in. He's obviously out of the race. And the interesting thing too at the moment, in a race full of happenings, is that Gilles Villeneuve is actually slowing everybody up. We're getting a repetition of the situation at Monaco, where Villeneuve won, and Spain, where he won, where by virtue of the fact that his turbocharged Ferrari is so powerful, he could blast ahead on the straights. It handles badly on the corners, but you can't pass Villeneuve on a corner, and that accounts for the fact that the 3rd to 9th men are bunched up tight behind Alan Jones, the race leader, and Alain Prost in 2nd position, as we look at Carlos Reutemann on the left in 7th place, still out of the points, and Nelson Piquet in 8th position. Mario Andretti behind them. Both the Alfa Romeos are going very well indeed. Bruno Giacomelli 4th, Mario Andretti 9th, and there is Reutemann, number 2. This could be Reutemann's last race. He has refused to say what his plans for 1982 are until this Grand Prix is over. It is not impossible that he, like his teammate Alan Jones, will decide to retire, particularly if he wins the World Championship. But he's not going to do that if Nelson Piquet's got anything to do with it. There's Piquet in his wheel tracks as Villeneuve 3rd, Giacomelli 4th, Laffite 5th, Watson 6th. And now Reutemann, Piquet and Andretti 7th, 8th and 9th go through just about as quickly as you can say who they are. There were a lot of people saying that this Caesars Palace circuit was going to be no good, but I have been amazed and delighted in talking to the drivers to have every one of them, without exception, saying that they liked it very much as a circuit. Yes, there are criticisms. Some of the concrete barriers, of which there are an enormous number, are difficult to see over, but the surface is very good. The crowd can see most of the lap from wherever they may be sitting, and since most of them have paid about $250 a seat, there's Piquet! Piquet going through! Piquet is ahead of Reutemann. Now we're getting the changes, because as Laffite goes through, there's Watson 6th. Piquet is up into 7th place. Reutemann is displaced to 8th. And if what I said earlier on comes to pass. You could have seen the moment when Piquet became world champion when he passed Carlos Reutemann. Because it doesn't matter whether Piquet scores points. Sorry, I tell a lie. Piquet has got to score at least 1 point to win the World Championship, which he would do even if he tied with Reutemann. And in order to win that 1 point, he's got to move up at least one more place. But provided he is anywhere in the points, which means first to sixth, and in front of Carlos Reutemann, Nelson Piquet would be the world champion of 1981. But this is a 75-lap race. Piquet, like anybody else, can make mistakes. Piquet's Brabham, like anybody else's car, can have something go wrong with it. And that would snatch the World Championship away from him, and it would not necessarily give it to Carlos Reutemann, because don't forget that Jacques Laffite is in the points, the man who is in third place in the championship. So, 7th position. Nelson Piquet, you're looking at him on the left of these two cars. And I see that Andretti is now ahead of Reutemann because behind Piquet, as that's a Brabham and it's not Piquet, so it's Hector Ribac. That's Hector Ribac, the Mexican driver, the second of the two Parmalat Brabham team drivers. Now let's check. Villeneuve is still in third position in the Ferrari. Fourth is still Bruno Giacomelli. Fifth is still Laffite. Sixth is still John Watson. Seventh is Nelson Piquet. Eighth is Mario Andretti. And Carlos Reutemann is not in sight. So Piquet and Andretti, 7th and 8th, seem to have broken away, and something must be wrong with Carlos Reutemann's car. Because if Carlos had been totally fit and his car had been 100%, there you see, now look, you can see the last of those cars is Andretti, and you can't even see Reutemann. That's Laffite on the right. Behind him, Watson, behind him, Piquet, and we look now at the third place man, Jacques Villeneuve. This is a good helicopter shot. Gilles Villeneuve third. Giacomelli, the blue car, is Laffite in 5th position. In 6th behind him in the red and white one is John Watson. And then Piquet in 7th place, still out of the points, as we round the right-hander with the man who is dominating this race from the front, with now a 23-second lead over Alain Prost, and it's Alan Jones. Not only is this surface very grippy, but it is not bumpy, as are most of the other circuits, and that means to say that the semi-rigid suspension of these cars, which I have talked about so many times in the past, due to the farcical, ludicrous regulations which control the way they are built, means that the drivers are not being battered nearly as much as they have been in the recent Grand Prix with much bumpier surfaces. And that's one of the reasons, of course, that the drivers are very happy indeed with this Caesars Palace brand new 2.2 mile circuit at Las Vegas. Especially Alan Jones, of course, in the lead. We're not seeing anything of Prost, I don't know why, but he's still there in 2nd place. Villeneuve is still 3rd. And it looks as though the race has become pretty static for the moment. And I don't think Nelson Piquet in 7th position, as we look at the battle for 3rd between Villeneuve, Giacomelli and Laffite, followed by Watson in 6th. I don't think Piquet is going to have nearly as easy a job to get past John Watson as he did getting past Carlos Reutemann. And that was a beautiful passing manoeuvre that Piquet... There's Laffite out of Giacomelli's slipstream to try and take 4th position away from him. And Piquet closes right up on both Laffite and Giacomelli, pulling away from Mario Andretti. And it looks to me as though Mario Andretti was taking Watson, and that's Derek Warwick, the English driver in the turbocharged Tolman car, who qualified for this race. And it's only the 2nd time a Tolman has got into a Grand Prix in the whole series since they started at Imola. Brian Hinton qualified in Italy, and now his teammate Derek Warwick has qualified the very tricky, still underdeveloped Tolman here at Caesars Palace. And so after 22 laps, it's still Jones, 13 seconds ahead of Prost, who is 22 seconds ahead of Villeneuve, and then close up Giacomelli, Laffite and Piquet. And you can see that there's under 2 seconds covering the 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th men, and that is Villeneuve. Gilles Villeneuve off. Sensation. Gilles Villeneuve, who was in 3rd position, is off the circuit and obviously out of the race. But here's another even more sensational statement. I've just been told that anyway Gilles Villeneuve had been excluded from the race. I don't know why they hadn't shown him a black flag, but Villeneuve was apparently excluded by the officials here at Caesar's Palace for not having his car correctly placed in the starting box on the grid, which seems to me to be a pretty harsh penalty, but it doesn't matter very much to Gilles Villeneuve now anyway, because he is out of the race, and we now know that Jacques Laffite has therefore moved up into 3rd position as Alan Jones completes another lap. Alan Jones well ahead then of Alain Prost. Alain Prost well ahead of the new 3rd place man Jacques Laffite. And another car off. That's Andrea De Cesaris's car, but he's not off the circuit. He's still on it because he's in the pits. And we've obviously caught him at the tail end of a tyre change. I just saw the jack being put away as Alan Jones goes on his victorious way. And it would be no justice at all if Alan failed to win this race. Look at the way he's driving. It's a masterpiece of driving superiority from this man who is in his 96th Grand Prix, comes from Glenburn in the state of Victoria in Australia. He's been in Formula 3, Formula 2, Atlantic. He has been the Can-Am champion here in America. He's driven in pro cars, the BMWs last year. He started his career in Formula 1 in the Hesketh, then went on to the Shadow where he won his first Grand Prix, and now it does look as though he's going to win his last Grand Prix. And after 28 laps, there's the confirmation that Laffite is in 3rd position, but now you see that Mario Andretti is up into 4th place, and let's catch this, hopefully. There is Reutemann. Reutemann still out of the points. And Reutemann going, and John Watson goes into the pits. Nigel Mansell behind him. Now, John Watson, we just saw dive into the pits there. I presume for a tyre change, because I haven't heard or seen anything wrong with his car. Here he is coming into the pit lane. And now let's watch and see what happens. And De Cesaris is out of the race because there was his car parked in the background. Now, is this going to be a tyre change? You can see Tyler Alexander has plugged in his intercom set to talk to John Watson as the mechanics are changing all 4 tyres. Now, it's the Michelin tyre users who are having trouble in this race significantly. All the Goodyear tyred men who had so much trouble in Canada, where their Goodyear tyres undoubtedly lost them the race, have turned the tables because Alan Jones there is on Goodyear. And that is Andretti. My goodness, this race has suddenly come alive. Mario Andretti out of the race when he had got up to 4th position. And you can see the reason for yourself. Look at that rear wheel cocked up, pointing at the sky, as a very gloomy Andretti, who also may be in his last Grand Prix, because there are very strong rumours that the popular American Italian is going to confine himself to racing in the USAC single-seater races in America next year. Let's hope that's not true. Ex-world champion Mario Andretti out of the race. And now Alan Jones then leads Alain Prost, with Jacques Laffite still in 3rd position, and Nelson Piquet is up into 4th. Carlos Reutemann has got up into 5th position. So Laffite, Piquet and Reutemann, who are the 3 World Championship contenders, are in 3rd, 4th and 5th places, and you could hardly have a more exciting situation than that. And that is Alan Jones on the right, catching Bruno Giacomelli, the Italian, who is in 7th position. The man who for so long at the beginning of the race was in 4th and for a short period 3rd place, blasting down the start and finish straight in the V12 Alfa Romeo into turn 1, 2nd gear, 11,000 RPM for a Cosworth Ford powered car, which is what Alan Jones is driving. And after 31 laps then, it's Jones, Prost, Laffite, Piquet, Reutemann and Nigel Mansell, the British driver in the Lotus 87, who in his first season of Formula One racing, his first full season, is in 14th position in the World Championship with 5 points, but who finished 3rd in Belgium. Alan Jones, 20 seconds now ahead of Alain Prost, who is 20 seconds ahead of Jacques Laffite. And they seem to have decided to get De Cesaris back into the race. And that is Alain Prost. We missed him. Our producers missed him. And Alain Prost, the Frenchman, who was in 2nd place, has been into the pits to have a tyre change, and this is really sensational. I thought it was exciting enough when Andretti went out and when Watson went into the pits, but now it's really come alight, because with Prost, who was in 2nd place, into and out of the pits, he's rejoined the race, I can tell you, in 8th position as we look at Alan Jones. And now it's this man, Alan Jones, leading Jacques Laffite. And if Jacques Laffite, as Jones goes past, leading Derek Warwick in the Tolman, if Jacques Laffite can catch and pass Alan Jones, he could win the championship, because Piquet and Reutemann are still behind him. It's real gambler's luck that, first of all, the World Championship was going to be decided anyway on this Caesars Palace circuit, and secondly, that it's turned out to be as dramatic and exciting as it is. And this 45,000 crowd strong in this bright, hot sunshine is revelling in every second of it. Alan Jones leads Jacques Laffite. Nelson Piquet is now 3rd. Nigel Mansell in the Lotus has got up to 4th place. Carlos Reutemann is in 5th. And Bruno Giacomelli is storming up through the field, and so is Alain Prost, because Prost has already got ahead of Giacomelli, who was 7th, and he's now closing up on Carlos Reutemann, who is in 5th position. The man that everybody is watching is not so much this man, the race leader Alan Jones, but number 15, 3 times Grand Prix winner in his first year with Renault, the Frenchman Alain Prost, who is fairly storming through the field. There's Prost in the background, and he's catching Reutemann. There is Reutemann. Now watch Carlos. Carlos is driving for reliability, obviously, and there is Piquet. Piquet is in 3rd position. Jones, Laffite, Piquet. Jones 39 seconds ahead of Piquet. Piquet 9 seconds ahead of Laffite only. Nelson Piquet, 9 seconds behind Laffite. Slip of the tongue there, for which I apologise. We're looking at the 3rd place man, Nelson Piquet, chasing one of the 2 men that could beat him in the World Championship, Jacques Laffite, and that is Carlos Reutemann, and that is Alain Prost right on his tail. Alain Prost is catching Carlos Reutemann, who is in 5th position. So Prost is in the points, and one of the reasons that Prost will be going so well, of course, is that he is on brand new race rubber. He's come into the pits, he's changed his tyres, and he surges past Carlos Reutemann with no bother at all, down then to 6th position and only just staying in the points, and well out of the World Championship running at the moment is Carlos Reutemann, storming away from him, pulling away tremendously fast Alain Prost, and now Prost has got ahead of him Nigel Mansell, who is in 4th position in the Lotus. There's Mansell, there is Prost, and there in 6th position is Carlos Reutemann. I remind you, because we have not seen him for a while, that still remorselessly driving round in the front is Alan Jones. Here he is. And he is catching Bruno Giacomelli, who is 7th. Alan Jones has lapped everybody up to Bruno Giacomelli, who is in 7th position. And that's Prost and Mansell. Lap 39 out of 75, and Alain Prost, incredible, straight past Nigel Mansell. And Nigel Mansell's going very well. He's on the right tyres, he's on Goodyear tyres. And Prost is using every one of those reputed 580 horses that he has got under his right foot, pulling away from Mansell as he pulled away from Carlos Reutemann. And the positions now then are Alan Jones leading Jacques Laffite, leading him by a long way, but if anything goes wrong with the car that you're looking at now, Jacques Laffite could still be in with a chance of winning the World Championship. But behind him is the man who is most likely to, at the present moment, Nelson Piquet, because Piquet in 3rd position is on 52 points in the World Championship at the moment, whereas Laffite in 2nd position is on 49 points in the World Championship, and Carlos Reutemann in 6th place is on 50 points in the World Championship. So at the moment, Nelson Piquet is leading the World Championship quite easily, provided he can stay at least where he is, and that is 3rd position. But he's not going to stay there. That's Prost. Prost is right up alongside Piquet. Piquet looks over his shoulder and Prost goes straight through and past Piquet. Prost has come up from 8th position to 7th, past Reutemann, then up into 5th position, past Mansell up into 4th position, and now past Nelson Piquet into 3rd place. A quite incredible piece of driving by undoubtedly the sensation of the 1981 World Championship series of races, Alain Prost. There he goes. It's only his 25th Grand Prix. This ex-junior kart world champion, ex-Formula Renault champion of France and Europe, ex-Formula 3 champion of Europe. And if that's not a future world champion, I will be very surprised indeed. And I invite you to look very carefully at the heads of the leading drivers on the corners, particularly Alan Jones and Nelson Piquet. It looks to me as though their heads are drooping, and I suspect that the G-forces are really getting to them, and particularly Nelson Piquet. And with respect to Alain Prost, I suspect that this is Nelson Piquet's trouble. I said earlier on he had started this race in pain. He is visibly slowing on the stopwatch. Of course, he's getting pit signals, so you'll know what his position is, and he will know that he has only got to keep ahead of Reutemann to win the World Championship. I'm sure he realises he has not the remotest chance of winning this Caesars Palace Grand Prix if Alan Jones keeps going as he is, and with Alain Prost pulling away from Piquet. So Piquet will be driving a tactical race to finish ahead of Reutemann to guarantee the World Championship, because Jacques Laffite in 2nd place is behind Nelson Piquet in terms of World Championship points, even though Nelson Piquet has dropped 1 place. There, the 3rd position man, Alain Prost. Mansell in 5th position, Reutemann in 6th place, and Jones is now leading by 45 seconds. Laffite 10 seconds ahead of Alain Prost, who is nevertheless gaining on the Frenchman. So the French driver Prost in the Renault is gaining on the French driver Laffite in the Talbot Matra. There is Nelson Piquet in 4th position. And this Caesars Palace crowd, most of whom, the vast majority of whom, will never have seen a Formula One World Championship race before, are certainly seeing a memorable one, and particularly the superb driving performances of Alan Jones, who has not put a wheel wrong since he dropped the clutch at the beginning of the race and took turn 1. and Alain Prost, who has, having lost second place, got up to third position and has only got Jacques Laffite in front of him as Alan Jones passes Didier Pironi in the Ferrari and laps him. And by the way, as our cameraman goes berserk, there is possibly the reason he went berserk, because that is our first view of Alain Prost ahead of Jacques Laffite and back into the second position that he lost when he went into the pits to change his rubber boots. Alain Prost then back into second position, and Bernie Ecclestone and Max Mosley, two of the men who are at the very top of Formula One Grand Prix racing. Bernie Ecclestone, sometimes called the Tsar of Formula One, are anxiously watching his man Nelson Piquet, because Bernie Ecclestone is also the boss of Brabham, and he is seeing Nelson Piquet almost certainly winning the World Championship here at Las Vegas today in the last Grand Prix of 1981. And it looks too as though almost certainly Alan Jones is going to achieve his ambition and win the last Grand Prix in his fine career, and also to break the record that I told you about earlier on. Alan Jones then. Just watch a real master at work. It's a flat and featureless circuit. See this Caesar's Palace one, it could hardly be anything else. There is Prost. And my goodness, Jacques Laffite is a long, long way back. I've been putting a stopwatch on Jacques Laffite, and he's going very slowly indeed. And it's my guess that because he is a Michelin runner, as is Prost, as were John Watson and Andrew de Cesaris, all of whom have had tyre trouble, and Pironi has been in on Michelins, I think that Jacques Laffite's tyres have gone off, and he will be struggling to keep his place. He will want to stay out on the circuit as long as he can, because as long as he's sixth or higher, he's going to be getting World Championship points, and there is always a chance that Nelson Piquet will break down as far as Jacques Laffite is concerned, and he will know that Reutemann is behind him. So if Laffite can stay in the points, he is still in with a fighting chance of winning the World Championship, because he's in fourth, he's behind Nelson Piquet. Yes, Piquet is ahead of Jacques Laffite. There is the Frenchman. And Nelson Piquet is ahead of him. There is Piquet. So it's Alan Jones leading, Alain Prost second, Nelson Piquet third. And no, Nelson Piquet, I misjudged things there. I'm sorry. I looked across the circuit and I thought I saw Piquet ahead of Jacques Laffite, but he's not. He's gaining on him. There's Laffite. There is Piquet. I may have been a little premature, but I don't think I'm going to have been wrong by the end of the race, because Jacques Laffite is visibly slowing. If you look at the stopwatch as Alan Jones goes through, Jacques Laffite is slowing, Nelson Piquet is gaining. Piquet at the present moment is in fourth position. Jacques Laffite is ahead of him in third. And behind them are Nigel Mansell in fifth place, Bruno Giacomelli, who has got up to sixth position, and Carlos Reutemann is right out of the points at the present moment. Alan Jones very, very much in them. There is Piquet. Now, where is he in relation to Laffite? There's the answer. Closer and closer all the time. And did you see Nelson Piquet's head loll as he went round that right-hand bend, with the G-force really acting on it and the weight of his helmet trying to force his head sideways? Laffite. You can't see anything wrong with the tyres, of course, but the driver can feel it. They enter another lap. Piquet closing right up on the gearbox soon of Jacques Laffite's Talbot Matra. Nigel Mansell in the background. It's very close still for third, fourth and fifth positions. There's Laffite third, Piquet fourth. Mansell just behind them in the black and gold Lotus in fifth position, ahead of Bruno Giacomelli sixth, ahead of both of them Alain Prost second, Alan Jones the leader. Laffite. one of 3 types of car with a 12-cylinder engine in this race. 2 types of car, the Alfa Romeo, and that is an epoch-making event because it is Alan Jones, the world champion, on lap 50 out of 75, lapping his teammate Carlos Reutemann, who at the beginning of this race looked as though he was going to be world champion. And Piquet and Laffite absolutely together. Piquet through then, so Piquet has done it, now he's done it. Nelson Piquet up into 3rd position, and that confirms my belief that Jacques Laffite is in trouble because Piquet passed him so quickly. But I can tell you that Alan Jones will really have savoured that moment as Piquet completes a lap in 3rd position. Laffite 4th, behind both of them in 5th position, very close. Nigel Mansell. And Alan Jones will have loved that moment I was telling you about because he still bitterly resents the fact that Carlos Reutemann at the beginning of the season did not move aside in the Brazilian Grand Prix as he was supposed to do according to his contract and let Alan Jones through to win the race. Reutemann won and Jones was 2nd, and Jones will therefore really have enjoyed, I think, passing Reutemann, his teammate, on the 50th lap. Alain Prost still in 2nd position. Nelson Piquet 3rd ahead of Laffite, and Mansell and Giacomelli completing the points with, when that caption was put up, 25 laps to go. 2/3 of the race completed. And is Piquet, well, I think the next thing is Jacques Laffite. Jacques going to have to come into the pits, no doubt about it, because it looks to me as though he's going to lose 4th position very shortly, and through into 4th position goes Nigel Mansell, the Englishman, in the Lotus 87. So now 3rd, 4th and 5th, but this time it is Piquet, Mansell, and in the blue Talbot Matra, Jacques Laffite, who surely must now give it best and come into the pits and change his tyres. If he doesn't, he's in danger of being passed by Reutemann. And there is Reutemann being passed by Didier Pironi, but that's no problem for Reutemann. And it's happened. Reutemann, incidentally, was being passed by Pironi, who had already been lapped, Pironi. But that's the significant thing. Jacques Laffite into the pits in 5th position. I think he's left it too late. He's going to go much, much quicker now than he did before. We've seen that from what Prost did, because Prost in a similar situation came into the pits, changed his Michelin tyres, rushed out again, carved his way through the field, regained his 2nd position. But Jacques Laffite left the pits in 8th place. He's out of the points, and as of now, as we look at Reutemann and Pironi, with Reutemann in 6th place, it's Alan Jones leading. It is Alain Prost in 2nd place. And Pironi absolutely blasts past the Williams. And there is Piquet, 3rd position. Nigel Mansell is now 4th. Jacques Laffite out of the pits, fighting his way up through the field to try and get back into the points to keep his World Championship chances alive. Alan Jones, number 1, because he is the reigning World Champion and will be until this race is finished, continues to lead by a decreasing margin now. The gap has come down from 40 seconds to less than 30. There is Prost in 2nd place ahead of Keke Rosberg. But Alan Jones can afford to take things pretty easily. As ever, Frank Williams, his team boss, and see Alan Jones's head, lol, there. That was definitely something that Alan didn't want to happen. Alan, like Piquet, is suffering from G-forces, I'm convinced of it. But as I was saying, Frank Williams, his team boss and manager, will be keeping Alan Jones informed about his position all lap by lap. And Alan will, who is one of the best tacticians, in fact he's been said by no less an authority than James Hunt to have the best brain in the business. and Alan will have it all worked out in the cockpit. But Reutemann here will be having to try like crazy, because he must get in back in the points if he's to stand a chance of winning the championship. Bitter gall for Reutemann this is, because he has led that championship ever since Brazil, which was one of the earliest races at the beginning of the season. He's never dropped below first place, although Piquet did get up to first equal with him once. But now it looks as though in the last race of the 1981 World Championship Series, Carlos Reutemann is going to have that World Championship crown, which means so much to him as it does to all the other drivers, snatched away from him. Well, the Williams is looking fast enough and steady enough as Piquet goes through ahead of Eliseo Salazar. Piquet from Brazil, Salazar from Chile. He's been in to have his Avon tyres changed. We mustn't suggest that Michelin are the only people who have been having tyre trouble in this race, because Avon have too. The only people who haven't been having tyre trouble are Goodyear, and there is Alan Jones to prove it. Prost in second place. And Nelson Piquet is slipping back, because Nigel Mansell is up through the field, and Bruno Giacomelli too. And I suspect that the pain is really getting to Nelson Piquet. But just as Alan Jones is secure in the lead, and knowing that he's only got to keep going the way he is now to win the race, Nelson Piquet, if he can fight off the pain and ensure that he does not slip below sixth position, is guaranteed the World Championship. Alan Jones. There are 15 competitors left in this race, which 24 started. But I must say that has surprised me. I expected the more mechanical mortality to be much higher than this. I frankly expected there only to be about half a dozen cars left in the race. Giacomelli up to third position. Mansell up to fourth place. Piquet down to fifth. Watson still in sixth, but a lap behind. Alan Jones has lapped everybody as we look down from the helicopter on the circuit. Now we're up on the top of Caesar's Palace, looking at Nelson Piquet in fifth position. He has slipped from third to fifth, because past him now are Nigel Mansell up into a superb third place, which equals the position he had in Belgium, and Bruno Giacomelli in fourth place. Behind Nelson Piquet, John Watson in sixth position but lapped. And right behind John Watson, I can tell you, you can't see it, is Jacques Laffite. It's happened. Jacques Laffite is doing an Alain Prost. He's coming up through the field at a terrific rate of knots, trying to get back into the points in the Talbot Matra, as Alan Jones smoothly drives on. And we're getting towards the closing stages of the race now. Not so many laps left in this 75-lap race. And Alan Jones has lapped Bruno Giacomelli in the background. And John Watson, as we look at Nelson Piquet, the order is Alan Jones, Alain Prost, Bruno Giacomelli in third position, Nigel Mansell in fourth place, the man that you're looking at in fifth position. And there again, yes, Nelson Piquet is certainly in trouble. Certainly in trouble. I'm not imagining things. Watch his head. Maybe we'll see it as they go into the turn. And Alan Jones, now having lapped Giacomelli, is right up with the sixth place man, John Watson. That is John Watson ahead of him. And Alan Jones, behind John Watson, goes into the last lap, the 75th lap of this memorable Caesar's Palace Grand Prix. And Piquet too is on the same lap as Alan Jones, much slower. He slipped right down through the field. But if Piquet finishes this race where he is, although he's got John Watson close behind him and Jacques Laffite is up into 7th place, the 5th, 6th and 7th cars are very close together, and 2 of them are driven by Nelson Piquet and Laffite, who are the World Championship contenders, with Carlos Reutemann down in 8th position. It's going to be a very close thing for 5th, 6th and 7th places, but if Piquet finishes 5th, he will be world champion. Meantime, here is Alan Jones, almost home. Round the left-hander, he straightens it up. The full turn is now completed. It's a long last lap as Alan Jones's head shakes again. And we wait to see him come through at the end of that 75th lap, and it's going to be a very welcome checkered flag that Alan Jones sees. And he sees it, and Alan Jones has won the Caesars Palace Grand Prix. He has broken that record. He is world champion, completing in the lead and winning his last Grand Prix. But there is the man who is, if he just finishes this lap, and surely he must, Nelson Piquet, the world champion designate of 1981, and he's going to be the actual world champion in just a few yards. Finishing in 5th place. He might have wanted to finish higher, but he should worry if he just gets the car home, and he's almost done it, no matter what he's feeling like. If he can keep Jacques Laffite behind him and Carlos Reutemann behind him, he's home and dry and world champion. Is he going to do it? It looks to me as though, even though he may be in trouble, the car is running well past the packed grandstand. The 38,000 spectators are seeing a new world champion, and there he is. There's Salazar across the line. There in the background is Nelson Piquet, and the flags of Brazil wave. And there's an enormous contingent of Brazilian spectators here, and I can tell you, because I can see them out of my box window, that they are going absolutely berserk with South American excitement. There is Jacques Laffite. He just failed to catch Nelson Piquet, but Piquet the Brazilian, the flags of Brazil wave for Nelson Piquet, as Alan Jones, let us not lose sight of the fact that he won the race. Alan Jones won the race. Nelson Piquet won the championship. So it's a fine ending to a fine race. Well, all around the circuit, the flags are being waved. The throats are issuing enormous cheers, and that's the man they're cheering. A very tired-looking Nelson Piquet coasting in. The World Championship won by 1 point by Nelson Piquet. Reutemann just 3 points ahead of Alan Jones, and Jacques Laffite 4th. Prost 5th, and John Watson in 6th position. And Nelson Piquet has almost passed out in the car, but on the rostrum he's revived as Alain Prost sprays the champagne. The laurel wreath, like Caesar, around Nelson Piquet's head. And the race winner in the background, there's Alan Jones giving them the champagne treatment as well. He's won his last Grand Prix. So then, the end of a fine season which started in South America, which has been through America and the countries of Europe, to finish up in America after the Canadian Grand Prix 2 weeks ago. A worthy winner in Alan Jones on his last Grand Prix, and a very worthy new world champion in Nelson Piquet. And now we look forward to the new season in 1982.